Footy Podcast 13. It's come quickly, so to speak, but it's also feels like it's been a long time since we started in October. 173 subscribers as of this morning. I just want to say thank you to anyone who has subscribed and is currently watching this. Really appreciate it. We really want to get to 1,000.
All 173 of you.
Yeah, all of them. 171 of them are my fake accounts.
Yeah.
But
and we're the other two. Louis hasn't got around to subscribing yet.
Yeah, Louis not into the podcast. It's not his
Louis
thing.
moved to Mongolia.
Yeah.
To
He actually-
technology.
He actually is in Mongolia at the moment. No, he's in Beijing, I think.
Oh,
I don't know.
We had this debate last week.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, and I never actually finalised where I think he is. I think, he's definitely waiting for the World Cup to start, which is only in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. But it might be a while before we get him back.
So wherever you are in the world, Louis, I hope you're watching.
Yeah.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you.
I really doubt he's going to watch this. He doesn't even watch this podcast when he's in Australia.
Oh,
What a bad...
Yeah, what a bad individual. That's right, I've watched him enough for all of us. That just makes me sound really lame.
you just love yourself, don't you, Art?
Yeah,
every Saturday night, Jess is like, want to come around and watch the podcast again? And I was like, oh, I probably can't tonight, man.
Well, can you blame me?
It is entertaining.
I'd like to think it is anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't we all? All right. So last week, boys, the flavour of the week was the West Coast
Freo.
Eagles.
Oh.
Yeah, Freo, yeah. Which I took great delight in, and they're still a talking point in the AFL world. But I think this week's hot team is Melbourne. Probably rightfully so.
Yeah, definitely around about 80-point win over Adelaide, considered one of the premiership favourites still.
91.
91.
help
Just
you
to
out.
cut me off there. No, but yeah, around about 90-point win. And
91.
some really good individual performances from Melbourne players, notably Gus Brayshaw. But a really good performance, I know, from Jack Viney as well, who's come back. So they're looking pretty good, Melbourne, and I think they could just about be about to launch a really big assault on the finals.
It's a little bit scary. I think we criticised them about 5 or 6 weeks ago. I certainly know I did, because they failed some big tests against good teams. So they've played some bottom 4 teams since then and just absolutely blow them out of the park. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But they've won 18 consecutive quarters and obviously beat, albeit an undermanned Adelaide, by 91 points. They're doing it really, really well, and probably no team is smashing other teams like Melbourne have in the last 5 weeks, you'd say.
Yeah, they're because they were like everyone's trendy pick at the start of the season. Everyone went off them. Now everyone's hopped right back on, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think I forgot what I was going to say.
That's cool.
I can remember it. I'm sure I can.
That's right. I'll just edit this little pocket of confusion out.
Yeah, I can't.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Okay. So they who have they beaten? They've beaten the Suns. They've beaten St Kilda, Carlton, Adelaide.
I think
Essendon.
What I remembered what I was going to say. There's not much of a gap between a lot of teams this year, and I think we might have seen this with West Coast as well. If you have a few good victories just against lower sides, you build a lot of confidence, and then once you win 2 or 3 against bottom sides, you build so much confidence. You think, oh, maybe we can take on a mid-tier team. You take on a mid-tier team, you beat them, and then all of a sudden you've got a real momentum going, real confidence going. And as we've seen with West Coast being the best teams in the comp, and I think Melbourne are about to do that as well.
Yeah, that's a fair observation.
I was going to say, still at that point, you see teams going the other way, like the Dockers, they're beating the lower teams, but then when they come up against a legitimate team, they're not really getting it done.
Yeah, it
goes the other way as well.
Yeah, that's true. It won't always be the case, but I think Josie makes a good point. In West Coast example, they've had a good run with in terms of playing teams at the right time, and what I mean by that is that I think we're playing a lot better football West Coast than round 1 when we lost to Sydney, round 2 when we belted the Dogs. Geelong were obviously depleted. We were a little bit lucky to catch them the way we did, and we've built confidence beating teams that way. And then we've sort of peaked in recent weeks, obviously smashing Richmond, where there's a huge difference between how we played in round 2 to round 9. And yeah, it's probably on the back of these guys having a bit more belief, a bit more experience in some of those younger, early 20s kind of guys. So it's probably the same for Melbourne. I presume that's where we were going with that topic. Melbourne are probably playing a lot, but no doubt are playing a lot better football than they were when they played Richmond and Hawthorn. And you wonder if they come up against them soon, they could probably, you'd probably give them a good chance of winning.
Yeah, I feel like they're at a very key point right now. If they got a belting in the next couple of weeks, I almost feel like, I don't know, it would really dent their confidence. But if they just continue the way they're going and keep winning these games, they've got to be, at some point, be considered good contenders for a top 4 spot.
You mentioned Viney coming back into the side. I think he really adds that extra layer of midfield depth for them. He's a great player. Who else do they have? We mentioned Brayshaw, Oliver. Yeah, Max Gawn, consistent as ever. Probably had his quietest game for the weekend against Adelaide, but still, obviously, he's very, very influential ruckman. Melksham as well was one. I don't think I've ever rated Melksham until this year, but
me neither.
They're all saying it. He's averaging. No, sorry, he has the most. Sorry, he is the best contested player. I think inside 50 contested situations, he wins 52% of the time, which is more than any other player. And I would have thought Jack Darling would have been pretty hard to beat in that stat. But it's hard to believe Melksham, who's probably only 6'1", I think, off the top of my head. I wouldn't have any idea he's such a contested beast.
Fair enough.
What?
Honestly, I didn't see that one coming. I haven't even known he's been playing that well, really.
Yeah, me neither, really.
I'd have thought like a Petrarca or something would have been that sort of guy doing that. Even though he's going well too.
He's made of tough stuff, Melksham. He's a boxer as well, I think. So he's one of those sort of guys you don't want to get on the wrong side of, I reckon.
Bit like Brent Staker and Barry Hall back in the day. Is that what you're sort of suggesting?
Brent Staker's a tough man. He would have killed Barry Hall in a ring. That's not a euphemism.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Jesse Hogan's also playing probably career best form at the moment.
I think it's hard to look at individuals for Melbourne. I think the reason they're going so good is they're suddenly sharing it across the board, not relying on Nathan Jones and Viney and Hogan to win them the game. Like they've got a good player in just about every position on the ground now, or they've got at least a half decent. I think time and time again, it's been proved in the AFL that overall team quantity, if you have like a team full of 7s, that'll beat a team with 4 10s and the rest are 5s.
Yeah.
In terms of looks.
I feel the same way. Yeah, that's true. I think they've added Tom McDonald to the forward line permanently there. I think he was playing a lot there last year when Hogan wasn't around.
Yeah.
And I think he's a bit of a mainstay there now. So they've got a pretty multi-dimensional forward line as well. If you add in the smaller guys in Matraka and stuff like that as well, with Jeffy Garlett, they do have a lot of weapons. I guess at the risk of throwing cold water all over them, I will
not
probably
entirely convinced.
It's not so much that. I'll just reserve judgment until they beat a Richmond or a West Coast or even a Sydney. I mean, they did just beat Adelaide, but Adelaide were pretty insipid.
Yeah, Adelaide have still played some pretty dodgy games. So
they've ticked along. That's how you describe Adelaide's season. They've
it's kind
ticked
of
along.
hard to get a read on where Adelaide are at.
They slipped out of the 8 now. That was actually gonna be the next topic I brought up. How do we view their performance against Melbourne? 91-point loss. They're quite undermanned. They lost Seedsman late, right before the game.
Much to the chagrin of my dream team.
Is it excusable, or do we let them write this one off, or?
I'm just writing it off at the moment. I'm not going to say they're out of the premiership race or anything like that, because teams do sometimes have just random outlier games where they get flogged. I saw it happen to Hawthorn, I think, the year where they won the grand final.
Which one?
Fremantle. I remember. I think they got belted by Saints in 2013, the year they made the Grandy.
Richmond got belted by the Saints last year.
Yeah, well, Richmond got beaten by Freo as well.
Yep. Belted by Adelaide, belted by St Kilda.
Yeah, so I think you can't really draw comparisons off one game. But in saying that, they do kind of want to get their act together, because the way they're playing right now is not good enough to make it to the grand final.
They've still got some talent there. Like, still they've still got a lot of good guys playing. They got still got Talia, Jacobs, Matt Crouch is back in.
Yeah,
Laird.
so Crouch is a test this week, I believe.
Matt Crouch.
Yeah, Matt Crouch. Brad Crouch is about 2 months off, I think.
Yeah,
I think
I was
actually,
talking about Matt Crouch.
Matt Crouch played on the weekend.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, they had Matt Crouch, Bryce Gibbs,
Yeah, I
Jenkins.
missed
If those who rate Jenkins,
Which
Eddie
is
Betts.
nobody.
that, sorry. He's alright.
He's a better journalist than he is a football player.
Yeah, so I actually liked that article he wrote the other week. That was
Yeah,
actually a
yeah.
good article.
He's done a few good articles, and I've seen him talk about how he wants more characters in the game and people to express themselves a bit more honestly to the media and stuff. But anyway, that's not important right now.
Not really.
I think sometimes because the game was in Alice Springs, that does slightly throw them off a little bit, possibly. But with it being an interstate team, the problem is they really need to get their act together quick, because if they want to get to the grand final, it's really important they try and get a top 2 spot, because it's going to be so hard for them to go to Melbourne and beat a Richmond, or beat a Melbourne at Etihad or the MCG to get into the grand final, which is the way they're heading right now.
Yeah, that's true. I think they'll be lucky if they even get that far, to be honest.
I was going to say, with your travelling point though, you'd think South Australia would be more suited to travelling than a Melbourne-based team, because they have to do it more often, obviously, compared to a Melbourne team.
Yeah,
so they sort of get to do that.
If they're not in the top four and a Melbourne team is in the top 2, Melbourne team's not going to have to travel.
Yeah, I know, but what you're saying, you're just holding that against them. I'm saying you thought that was an advantage for Melbourne, where Adelaide had to travel. I was going to say Adelaide had the advantage in Alice Springs, I'd argue, because they're more used to travelling than Melbourne. That's what I meant.
I more meant that I know both teams had to travel, but I more meant just sometimes that just throws one team off a little bit. Just having a random game in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't think you were saying it was the travel factor. It's just the new environment sort of it sort of throws them a little bit. I see what you mean.
Yeah. I would have thought it'd throw Melbourne more than Adelaide, though.
It depends on their mindset. It's not as simple as that, isn't it? Adelaide have a bit of a tough stretch. They lost to the Port a few weeks ago. I feel like, they're out of the 8 now, so they've dropped quite a few winnable games.
Yeah.
Lost to Essendon, did they?
They lost to Essendon in round 1. That was a while ago. I can't remember. They lost to somebody else recently, but
was it Carlton? No, it wasn't Carlton.
Collingwood. They lost to Collingwood by 50 points. So, yeah, as you were saying, they do need to get their act together. I think they'll be lucky to push top 4 with the way they are going. It means they'll have to have a really exceptional second half of the year. We're having their games they've lost. I think they're about 6 and 4, if that. Yeah, 6 and 4.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but it's doable. We were saying the other day Richmond were 5 and 4 last year.
Yeah.
So, and they'd lost 4 games in a row. So, we'll see.
But you briefly mentioned Collingwood there. They're another one, but sort of bobbing up a bit, I'd say.
Yeah, they're ticking along. They nothing spectacular since the Adelaide game. I think I've had a look at their run for the rest of the year, and they do seem like it's going to be hard for them to miss the 8. Personally,
yeah.
I think they'll be hard to beat. For teams even like West Coast at the MCG, I'm a little bit worried about that game later in the year. And they're having a few players break out a little bit. I think Tom Phillips is having a great year.
Yeah. Very great year. Thanks for trading him to me, by the way, Joycey.
Right, thanks for Jack Stephen for Stephen Hill.
Oh, mate.
But anyway.
Scharenberg's the other one I was going to say. For one of the more improved players for Collingwood.
I think, again, I go back to suddenly a team effort rather than relying on individuals to drag them along. I think it's helped them so much. A lot of those young guys are starting to really come on. De Goey, we've seen play some really big games in the last few weeks. I know you love De Goey.
Oh mate, I do love a bit of the De Goey on occasion. What can I say?
And goodbye, Google AdWords.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I just said the guy's name. Come on.
And got a few others like Crocker. I know. We've got Treloar in the middle.
Grundy obviously.
Phillips, Grundy, Hoskin, Elliott.
Steele side bottom.
Steele side bottom. They're pretty strong across the board now. I feel
Adams isn't actually even offering them that much at the moment.
He's been playing
Adams
bad.
has had an average year, but that's good that they. That shows it can only be a bonus if he gets back to his best form.
That's very true.
Even Penderbury's still ticking along.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably dropped off a bit as well in the last 2 or 3 years.
He had that good game the other day, but
the team's not relying on him anymore to get 35 disposals. If he just ticks along and gets his 28, 29 every game,
and can step up when he needs to,
that's going to be perfect. Yeah.
So just going back to Adelaide real quick, they do have Sloan and Walker to come back in the second half of the year. I don't think they're going to see Brad Crouch at all. I did say a couple of months, but now I think about it, he's got, I think, osteitis pubis. Speculated that he's got osteitis pubis. So if you're not going to see those guys for another month to the rest of the year, I wonder if they could do some serious damage to their win-loss ratio in that time. It's probably lucky they've got a buy in between.
Because even with the injuries, I heard a funny story the other day. It was old Brodie Smith. He tried to show up to training, and the security guard didn't know who he was because he's been on the shelf that long.
Yeah,
so he finally got let in, and then he got kicked out again because they thought he'd snuck in.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Similar to speaking of weird injuries, did anyone hear about Callum Mills stepping on an NFL ball and broke his foot?
Yeah, that sucks. Was it he stood on it? Yeah, I remember. I read that he was playing touch football or something like that, and then he got injured. Was it that he stood on it?
Yeah.
I wonder how the club takes that in that situation.
I mean, there's not much you can do. I guess you just need to educate the player on what's appropriate to do outside of football.
Yeah. A course on not stepping on balls.
I know.
Not taking your dog for a walk or whatever it was to go eat with his dog.
I know Fremantle had to go through with Dylan Robertson because he was just such a keen skateboarder when he first came to
that's a dangerous sport too.
And I mean, obviously the chances of breaking a leg or doing something with that is really high.
Wellingham screwed his ankle when he first joined West Coast on a trampoline.
Yeah, that's right. But
it's frustrating for
probably did you a favour.
An interesting one to draw a line on though, because these guys in their everyday lives, it's an interesting one to draw a line on what can you do and what can't you do in your personal life.
I mean, if you're a professional, you're getting paid to do that. You shouldn't be putting yourself at risk, in my opinion.
Still,
I agree.
You wouldn't call jumping on a trampoline too much at risk, stuff like that. Where's the line in that sort of thing?
I don't know.
It depends what he's doing on the trampoline, doesn't it?
If he's trying to do backflips,
if he's doing backflips and stuff, then it probably is. But I mean, if he's just jumping on it, but I don't see how you can roll your ankle that badly just jumping up and down.
Yeah, that's true.
Still, things happen.
Same with, I think he fell off the
accidents
trampoline.
Happen.
And same with Mills. If he's just playing a little bit of NFL, it's hard to really bash him for that. I guess depends. Obviously, you can't see.
You just don't know
how he was playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to my boys, because
Paddy Cripps has been good.
My boys, Carlton.
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought Brizzy were your boys.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
The Lions. Subiaco.
Yeah. The Eagles. Tough away win. Yep. So
I thought they did it pretty comfortably. This is awkward because
neither of you go for the Eagles, and
I thought they did it pretty comfortably.
No, I probably watched more of that game than you did, and I was sort of went, yeah.
I watched the replay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the game live. It was a real scrap, a funny old game, and it's pleasing. I don't think that was our best performance for a while, but it's good that the Eagles are at least sort of silencing the critics with regard to winning in Melbourne. And I've always thought that was a little bit of a myth. I don't think we've ever had a problem in Melbourne generally. I think we have a problem at the MCG. So winning at Etihad, I wasn't too surprised, but it is good to beat Hawthorn because I don't think we've beaten Melbourne in Hawthorn for 12 years.
Yeah, it was they mentioned it in the broadcast. It had been a while since you'd beaten them over there.
Yeah. I saw a really good interview with Simpson after the game on the couch. Shouldn't be plugging other footy shows, but it was a great episode. And it was about a 10-minute interview with Simpson. And it was interesting. He said that if he had been consulted, he would have said that he would have wanted Optus Stadium to be the same dimensions as Subi, so long and narrow, obviously, so that the Eagles could preserve their finals advantage and he wouldn't worry about the MCG. His focus was more like he wants to win enough games to secure finals, maybe top 4. He's not even thinking that far ahead, which I thought was an interesting mindset. I would have thought maybe you'd have a bit of an eye on the bigger picture, maybe try and close the gap on why you're playing so bad at the MCG. But then again, Fremantle aren't too bad at the G, so...
I don't... I'm still not even sure if I buy into the Eagles are terrible at the MCG thing.
In what sense? You
Well,
don't think
who have
they
you
are?
played at the MCG in the last few years? You've played, obviously, the grand final.
Yep.
So you can be excused to losing to
Hawthorn.
arguably the best team in the competition, or second best that year.
Yeah.
You beat Carlton this year. You've beat Hawthorn this year.
That was at Etihad, Hawthorn.
Okay, so,
So we just beat
last year, who did you play at the MCG?
I think we beat Carlton by 7 points. I think that was last year.
Yeah.
Another unconvincing... I say unconvincing. I think Carlton played pretty negative tactics against this year and sort of choked us. But I don't know. I still think there's a big difference in the way we play, to be honest. I think our efficiency and our goal-scoring power dries up the MCG. Our average score would be really low. But you make a fair point. I mean, how many interstate teams beat beat Hawthorn at the MCG? There wouldn't be that many, would there?
It's a small sample size as well because we don't get much of a crack at the MCG really as WA teams.
Yeah, Victorian teams. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Fremantle beat Richmond at the G last year, didn't they? And West Coast struggled against Carlton. I think there is something there. There's certainly a relationship between the way teams play and ground size. Because Ruse said something interesting. Paul Ruse on footy on the couch. He said that that 15 to 20 metre kick that you would do out of defence at any other ground would be fine. But he said at Subiaco, because of the shape of the ground, it's narrow, it would be a danger kick every time. So they had to restructure all of their kick-outs and stuff like that.
Okay.
He only talked about it for a second, but I thought that was really interesting. So coming from him, there is a real difference in the way he
So
plays.
the MCG, that's a shorter and wider ground, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
So because of that, you can see that the structures of the team get more pushed and squashed together. So I think that maybe proves that the MCG slightly would favour teams that play a little bit more contested brand of football and teams that are good in the 1v1, so the 50-50 football. Because obviously if there's less space, that means the more time you're kicking the ball, it's going to more contests.
So with that,
There's
so
less
that could
space that way, but there'd be more space that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
with
But
that,
I mean, the lines are all getting pushed closer together, so...
I was going to say with that contested
It's
point.
wider though. Sorry, Busher. What?
I was going to say with that contested point because Eagles were pretty average in contested ball last year. And now they're good this year. It could be an indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was about to say Freo have been a strong contested team over the last few years, and that could explain why we've done better.
Yeah.
And I think the drop in the length of the field is more than what the width has been added, if you understand what I mean.
Sorry?
So I think comparing the MCG to Subiaco,
Yes.
so the difference in length is bigger than the difference in width of the ground.
Yeah, okay.
So
probably.
the space would still be smaller.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You like total surface area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think with our defence, it's hard because our defence relies a lot on midfield pressure, pressuring the ball carrier, and forcing them to bomb high. And that way, McGovern and Shepherd and Yo and Hearn can just fly over the top for marks or spoils. But I think on a wider ground, it's actually really harder to defend that because there's more ways that the ball can be coming in, if that makes sense. If it's narrow, it's harder. It's easier. I don't know. I'm speculating. I'm not an AFL coach. I think there is a difference between the way we play at the G and our home ground. Definitely, you can see that in the performances. But
Yeah.
we'll see how we go against Collingwood later in the year. Because if we get a disappointing loss in that, then where to next? Like, it's hard to have any real optimism going into finals. Okay, back from the break. Had minor technical issues there. That'd be something different.
Every time we have some sort of technical issue, I think I'm cursed. Honestly, literally, I had a tax video I had to make for uni the other day.
Yeah.
And the one criticism of it was the audio was a bit dodgy in patches, so I think I'm just cursed. Other than that, it got like near perfect marks, not bragging or nothing.
Oh yeah, just slip that in.
Yeah, man.
That's his attitude to life.
Yeah,
I have a shit
just slip it
GPA,
in.
but I got one good grade one time.
Nice. Well done, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Yes, well done, Slivery.
And then they reformatted the whole unit because it was too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was BLR, literally.
Yeah, that did happen. All right, boys. we'll wrap this up kind of soon because we don't have a lot of time. But I just made a post on Instagram. I want to see what your thoughts on it. Is the top 4 going to change from what it is now? I know you'll probably say yes.
Who's the 4th?
West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne are the 3,
Yeah,
and
who's
then
the
Sydney's
4?
4.
Okay, Sydney's 4.
For me personally, I think I'm pretty confident about West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne at the moment. Sydney are probably the one that could get replaced.
By who?
How come
though?
you thought that I would change it?
Well, because I did kind of float this idea the other day, and you said it's way too early to tell.
Oh, I said it's too early to lock in a 4,
Right.
but I don't think it will change. Probably no.
Oh, that's kind of the same as locking it in.
Not necessarily. If you're asking me to lock in,
I'm asking you, mate.
I
Lock
would
it in.
say it won't change,
Yeah.
but I think it easily could.
Yeah, but who are the candidates, do you think, for that 4th spot? We got Sydney's in it right now. I think
Because North's 5th.
North is 5th, yeah. Then you got Port, who at the moment are 8th or 9th, but they've played one less game. And then there's Geelong and Adelaide, and GWS, who are all... at
Even
times-
Hawks are 10th, I think.
Collingwood's in there as well.
Yeah.
I can't see them all being candidates.
Chances are it stays the way it is, I think. I'd
Yeah.
say on the balance of probabilities.
Probably. There's got to be some stat. Okay.
Yeah. Beyond reasonable doubt's another one entirely, but reasonably.
Can I come back? You stop doing that?
What are you
No,
talking about?
nothing. Beyond reasonable doubt, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be beyond reasonable doubt, but it'd be like balance of probabilities for sure.
Yeah, I personally think we've got our 4 best teams at unless someone falls off a cliff. It happens all the time, doesn't it?
It doesn't happen in Sydney.
West Coast. No, I'm joking.
It'd be hard. Like
Yeah, they wouldn't
it's
do
not impossible, but it'd be hard to see a team go from 9-1 and miss the 4. I think Essendon, to be fair, actually did start a season 8-1, 2012, and they missed the finals. So that should really teach us all we need to know about whether we should be trying to predict the top 4 right now. Probably not.
Yeah, we're probably shooting ourselves in the foot a little, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I don't think Geelong and Adelaide are at the. I don't think. Yeah, Geelong, Adelaide, and GWS. I'm pretty confident aren't a shot for the top 4.
they're definitely shot for the 8, but not the
Yeah,
4,
yeah. I think Adelaide and GWS are so injury depleted at the moment that I think it's going to be hard for them to turn it around. Geelong haven't really impressed me at any point this year.
No.
I don't know about you guys, but I mean, they beat Carlton by a few goals on
Yeah.
Saturday. Lost to Essendon by 6 goals the week before that. I don't know. I don't really
They're a
feel it,
bit bleh.
Yeah. GWS are in a bit of strife. Deledio now has been announced for another 2 months.
Oof.
So
Yeah, they just can't catch a break over
Yeah,
in Western Sydney.
they're in an interesting spot because if they keep bleeding at the rate they are, I wonder to how long their players will remain patient.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you guys are big on the theory that a lot of their players are just hanging around for a flag and want to go afterwards, aren't you? So you're somewhat big on that.
I'm not necessarily, but
Yeah.
I think some of them are personally. Like I think Kelly maybe.
I think they're better players. They'll be able to throw a lot of money at,
Yeah.
but I think they might bleed some of their a few more of their B and C grades.
They've already been copping that the past couple of years. Devon Smith.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. I think those
Look
sorts
at
of
how well he's
guys.
playing
I
this
think those sorts of guys could
Yeah.
easily go. But to be honest, GWS, Western Sydney, you can definitely see the pull for a player to be like, I want to go play in Perth or go play in Melbourne
Yeah,
for
'cause
the
no
latter
one-
part of my career instead of doing this in Western Sydney where we're getting 5,000 people to the game every week.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think the ones they might lose are Cornelio and Kelly. Maybe even Taranto. Taranto has been phenomenal this year, actually. I feel like he doesn't even get talked about enough. He was obviously picked 2, but he's having 30 possession games, semi-regularly.
regularly.
So, yeah, I mean...
For me, it's Lockie Whitfield. I think I said at the start of the year I really rated him,
Yeah.
but I think he's proved, he's an elite player if he's out on the park.
I mark him down a little bit because he's just such a seagull, which is not...
A half-back, see. Oh.
Yeah, but there's a reason they play him there. It's because he uses the ball so well.
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
so damaging, and there's definitely a place for those kind of players in the modern game. There, in fact, they're increasingly important.
Yeah.
Those half-back guys who can set up from the back half. He is a really good, really damaging player, definitely.
You're even hearing that a bit with half forwards. We were talking about it a bit the other day in our group chat. They reckon half forwards are...
Yeah, so it was Chris Judd that said on the Footy Show, I think, he said that the new position that you should build your club around is the high half forward, which I said in the group chat, I think that's ludicrous. I can't think of too many teams who have successfully built a team around that player.
It's definitely a stretch unless you call Dusty more of a high half forward than a midfielder, but at this point he's in the mid. Even Walters is probably a bit of that hybridy half forwardy midfield guy.
Dusty had way more impact as a midfielder. That's when he went down low, and this year he's not going to get close.
For me, midfield is still the spot where you win
absolutely.
and lose games. Even clubs that don't have a very good forward line, but have maybe one half decent forward, like Geelong, they still win games just from repeat number of entries. For me, the midfield is where you have to build.
Drawing back to that Geelong quickly, their forward line sounds pretty depleted as well, actually, because I heard Menzel's out. There was... Who else? That I can't say his name, the young kid.
College Jasny?
No, forward.
Radicalier.
Yeah, that guy.
He, I think his year's over almost.
Yeah.
He's broken his leg or something.
Missed a few games.
Parfit.
Menegola plays up there a little bit, but he rotates. I think there is importance in the half forward and half back, but I think the clubs play the type of football is such fast pace that they play a high rotation game. So I think your half forward, your half backs are more midfielders these days than they ever have been. I think you need, especially I think the half forwards need to be able to run through the midfield.
Because they come through, like there's a stoppage, there's all the midfield's tied up in it, these guys can just burst through. And
that's it. A half forward is pretty much a midfielder for the forward 3/4 of the ground, if you know what I mean. They're going to be at every stoppage.
Or one out and burst through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Simpson said some really interesting comments as well on that same interview. He said it's kind of the opposite to what we were just saying, even though I agree with you. He said that the Eagles have picked this year, they're picking less midfielders and they're trying more specialist forwards. So last year we picked 4 forwards. We picked Darling, Kennedy, Lacroix, and someone else I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Cripps, probably.
Jamie
and
Cripps,
then we plonk a couple of mids on the half-forward flank, but now we're going to a much more role-focused team, and you're getting Rioli and Ryan and Waterman in amongst those other 4 players I mentioned, playing 7 forwards. It seems to be working at the moment, and I don't think that necessarily means that's the way to go. It's just interesting. I think we're kind of profited because our midfield's improved, but it's just weird how the game ebbs and flows. I think you see the top team does something different every year. The top team is doing some innovation, and the next year teams try and copy it, and it doesn't work.
I think to a certain extent you should just stick with what you're trying to a certain extent, and if after a few years it doesn't work, maybe new coaching or new structures or whatever, rather than just trying to copy. Because they've got the talent to do what they do the best. They're not.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got the talent to do what you can do, not the talent to do what Hawthorn's done for the past.
It's going to be hard to beat the original strategists, set their own strategy.
That's true.
That's where I really value coaches that can look at their talent and game plan around their talent rather than try and force their game plan on talent. That's my personal sort of...
I think there's elements to both of those that work. But I think
there's another interesting one for me is the way that people have kind of overreacted to Richmond winning the flag, and they've said that the key forward as a position is dying because they played Rewalt and 5 small forwards last year. But how many key forwards are still influencing the game so much? Ben Brown, Jack Darling at the moment, Lance Franklin,
even Waite.
Yeah, exactly right.
Two-headed
for me, I think
off.
Jack Rewalt gets a bit underrated as well. I think on his day he's a really good key forward.
He's a Coleman medalist.
And he kicks goals every single game, even though he's the only key forward. Imagine a forward line. Imagine if he had another half decent forward up there, how many goals he'd probably kick a year.
I agree with you there. He's an underrated player actually. But it'd be interesting to see how they go without him this week because he's going to miss at least 1, maybe 2, with a bad concussion. So interesting.
If they pull Tom Lynch at the end of the year, I'll be pretty worried about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair call. They'll have both ends sorted, so to speak. And
much like yourself.
and then obviously a really good midfield. So they would be setting themselves up. Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully he goes to Collingwood, where we know they won't win a premiership. So.
Pew
Do
pew.
we?
No, I'm just kidding. No,
I was gonna say he'd be Tom Lynch at Collingwood would make that team scary. I reckon.
Yeah, we really want Tom Lynch to go to
Freo.
a terrible, a terrible team like
Gold
Carlton
Coast.
that can't. Yeah.
Brisbane.
All right, fellas, we'll wrap it up pretty soon. We'll just have a quick look at next week. I think it's a pretty average round to be honest. There's 3 games I've isolated that I think are going to be of interest. Hawthorn, Port Adelaide in Launceston.
I'm
Okay.
tipping Hawks.
Yeah, in Launceston Hawks.
I think Port are probably in better form, but they
Launceston
clearly are in better form. Hawthorn have dropped 3 in a row, but the Launceston factor
Is huge.
yeah, that'd be a big win for Port if they got it. I think they would kind of their finals chances would sort of.
It'd get their confidence right back to where it needs to be a legitimate crack.
That's true. Yeah.
Anytime you knock off Hawthorn in Launceston, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You must be going well to beat them.
Yeah.
Essendon and Richmond, the Dreamtime game. That could promise to be one of the games of the round, or it could be a flop. It really depends on which side Essendon bring out.
Yeah, I'll say Essendon's a bit of a 50-50.
Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed that they're going to pull off an upset, but I think I'm still going to tip Richmond.
You just want to be 2 games clear, don't you?
I really do. But I mean, I think Essendon are the sort of team that could beat Richmond.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
when they're on their day.
And then lose to Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And then the last game I wanted to isolate was Adelaide and GWS, because we got 2 teams that are injury depleted, previously picked to be top 3 or 4 teams. Who do we think is going to win that? It was in Adelaide.
In Adelaide, you'd probably give the sniff to Adelaide, I guess.
Yeah, gross. What do you reckon?
Who are they playing? Again?
Adelaide GWS.
Yeah, Adelaide. We'll go Adelaide.
All right. Well,
I
that's
think
probably
GWS are on the.
yeah.
Still so are Adelaide a bit, but
Yeah, I mean, Adelaide have had one really bad game, and then some average games.
Yeah.
They're still higher. Adelaide is still higher than
Yeah.
GWS, I think. So yeah.
because GWS have that tie that it's holding them down on the ladder a bit.
The draw
Yeah.
against St Kilda? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. All right, boys, let's wrap this one up. Yeah,
Thanks very much,
Yeah.
Jesse.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Pusher.
Thanks,
welcome,
Pusher, for the
mate.
Cokes.
And
Absolutely.
thanks to all our subs. And
All
we will
173 of you.
Hopefully, be up to 200 by the next podcast.
we'll see you
No
next time.
pressure.